Hello, everyone. I am Alan Wallner, President and Visionary of Conscious Branding, and welcome to Thrivecast. With Thrivecast, our intention is to focus on you, your business, and your success. And with each episode, we discuss at a high level topics to spark new thoughts, generate ideas, and push the boundaries of what we know is familiar. And with all that, hopefully we may even frame up a new mindset to ignite your business forward and inspire action. And our topic for today is, what are you waiting for? It's time for imperfect action. And we've all had this. It's the program, service, or product that just seems to never reach completion or launch. And we can easily find reasons why we can't seem to get it to launch, or it's like, I don't have time, or I don't have the resources. It's not quite ready yet. Or maybe even a competitor just came out with it. So why bother? So there's a lot of different excuses. And today we're going to take a look at what's really going on here and how to break through those barriers and move our business forward. We're going to explore how to remove resistance, develop a good plan, get started, and launch. We'll even look at the benefit of imperfect action and launching, even though it's not perfect. And I struggle with that one, but it's a good thing, because then we'll talk a little bit more about it here. But before we get started, I'd like to welcome our panelists. First, we have Nancy Clairmont Carr. She's the founder of Joy Effect. And Nancy leads executives, business owners, and professionals to joy, abundance, and freedom to predictably achieve outcomes. Her approach includes developing a higher consciousness to access elevated thinking and intuition. So thank you, Nancy, for being here today. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Alan. This is fun. I enjoy this.
All right. And then we also have Heather Nunley. And Heather is the founder and CEO of Culture Fuel Group. And Heather works with business leaders to elevate accountability and advance top talent. She's dedicated to creating workplaces that are innovative, focused, and engaged. And this creates an environment where improved results, better retention, and greater customer satisfaction take place. So welcome, Heather. It's great to have you here today.
Great to be here with you all.
All right, this is a great topic for today, because with everything that's going on, with the uncertainty and the flux in the business climate today, it can create what I call a launch paralysis. And we get riddled with thoughts of, should we do this? Should we do that? What if? What if people don't buy it? Or even, I don't think people will pay for that. And our product or services stall, and they may not even ever get launched. They may never see the light of day. So this is a good topic, and I really like this, and I hope you will today as well. So without any further delay, let's get started on getting this launched. So just kind of having some fun here. Anyway, Nancy and Heather, can you share a time when you had a failure to launch? A time when you had a project or a product that just stalled and hung there and just didn't happen? And I think with that, I'll start with Nancy.
Yes, I can think of a big one. And it was when I was in corporate marketing. So I worked for a medical company. We leased medical products to hospitals, but we also collaborated with other companies to come out with products. And anyway, so we were collaborating with a company to bring to market a medical device called a DPAP machine, which was like a variation of a CPAP machine. It's designed to support challenged breathing. So there was lots of energy that went into that product development. We worked with the FDA and some very interesting, passionate people, and it never came to fruition. I mean, it was the biggest project that never was. And it was a great idea. It was based on a great idea. And so, when you think about why didn't it work, some people blame the FDA for being slow. Some people blame the other company's process management and scattered approach. And of course, we never blamed our side of the equation. But at any rate, it never got off the ground. And so I think that we can always learn something from those failures. And, sometimes it just wasn't meant to be. The work I did before I started my own business was sort of a different mental, energetic approach and framework. And what I've learned pretty profoundly since is that if it's not an intuitively guided, on purpose idea, it's probably going to come up with obstacles after obstacle after obstacle. And the failure rate seems to be a lot higher when it starts out on the wrong foot, not aligned. So I found using the conscious leadership model helps to ensure that products and ideas are more successful. And knowing, as I said, that you're aligned with the key purpose of either the person or the organization, it really increases the chance of success. And you're doing this. It's the reason for its existence. And I find when you're not following that, the process doesn't have as much flow. It takes a lot more effort, and it just doesn't yield optimal outcomes. So that's kind of how I looked at that failure, and also ways that I try to ensure success going forward.
Okay, so you're kind of saying that the reason why that project never really got off the ground was because the intention and maybe the efforts of the people involved, they just weren't in alignment.
They really weren't.
Everyone's off kind of doing their thing, and people really weren't working together.
Mm-hmm. So there's a question
outcome.
here. Yeah, exactly. So in alignment, is that what the question is, Brad? What do I mean by in alignment? I'm not sure. I didn't see the whole question, but so when you're a person, individual organization, or a larger organization, I think defining what the purpose of your business is has to be pretty crystal clear. And then every project or goal or declaration or intention for an individual, if it's not lining up with what your purpose is, you're off right away from the get-go, out the gates. So that's what I mean by being aligned with what you're trying to accomplish for your business or for your purpose in life.
Sure. All right. I think we'll have Heather tap in here too a little bit, and I want to hear kind of what she has to say around this, and then we'll kind of bring us back together here and see where we're aligned.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I have to add to that. It kind of brings a bit of a smile to my face now that we're here today in the present, because years ago, there certainly was not a smile when I had this particular failure to launch situation occur for me. And as some of you know that I've met before, but many of you don't, my professional background is in the human resources field. So my focus has been people development as an HR director with brands like Nordstrom and with Marriott. Well, after a few life changes, and this is years ago, even though I truly enjoyed the work that I was doing, I ended that career and transitioned into entrepreneurship. So with that said, I started working with our family business at the time, and my role was marketing, and I was pretty good at it. While I was in that role, though, I went and I got a certification to become a coach. And while my initial work as a coach, it was helping other business owners with marketing, being that it was something that I was doing in my own business as an entrepreneur, and enjoyed it and felt like I was pretty good at it. Got some great results within our family business. So I taught what I had learned to other people. So here's my no launch story. I actually, coming straight out of my marketing or my coaching certification, and I started this coaching, helping people with how to build their businesses. I created a marketing coaching program that never successfully launched, like ever. And here's the burn with that. I spent so many hours creating it. So many. I mean, I really put in a lot of time, a lot of effort, research, just everything, pulling that together. And I even hired a consultant who was going to help support my overall vision of that and the efforts that I was putting into it. I held a webinar, which was my first time ever doing a webinar. Made me sick to my stomach. I just was so nervous about the whole experience overall, the technology and everything involved. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, I never fully followed through with that entire launch plan as it was written to carry out that program. I did this half-hearted type of a launch, and I did have a few people that sporadically kind of signed up and work with me with that, but it just never became what we set out for it to be. With that being said, some of the things that I felt that made it stall, number one, I was really did not, I lacked that technical support and knowledge for the challenge that was in front of me. At that time, I was early in my stages of business and feeling very ambitious, of course, that I was going to figure it all out on my own. And that did not serve me very well. The other thing that comes to mind when I think about what may have made that stall is that with all those hours of pre-work and preparation that I put into it, I never once really stopped and asked myself, do I believe in this body of work that I am putting out there in the world? Is it going to make me happy? Do I feel engaged enough in this that it would be sustainable for me? And really, what is my end game goal? So I don't know that I really solidly answered those questions for myself because, at the end of the day, what I discovered was that my heart wasn't in it. There was no passion around developing a business around marketing for me. Even though I was good at the marketing for the purpose of developing my own business, it's not my expertise. My specialty is talent and people development and team leadership. It's what I know and it's what I do to this day. So that's why I had to smile when I looked at that, because if I could take you all back there with me, it's funny now, but it wasn't then. I was practically in tears.
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely see that. It sounds like you have a little bit of overlap with kind of what Nancy was saying too. It's kind of like that, the intention and purpose and the alignment. It sounds like alignment has a lot to do with this. Even starting to explore maybe areas you're not as familiar or comfortable with, like the technology component.
Yeah.
I was going to go back to kind of what Nancy said earlier about kind of an intuitively guided idea. And I think that's what Brad was interested in learning a little bit more about, what he chatted about. And so it sounds like both of you, to some degree, although Nancy, I'm not sure with the larger collaborative group that you were working with, but with Heather, that intuitively guided idea, it sounds like maybe you weren't following your gut with it. It was more of, I got to do this. And it was more kind of a mind idea rather than something from the heart, because your passion really wasn't there. Is that kind of what we're all kind of understanding as an intuitively guided idea?
I'll talk to that first. I think that when we do things that aren't really from us, from aligning with our purpose, as I was saying earlier, we can get off track pretty easily to do stuff that we think we need to do. Like I'm sure Heather thought, well, at least I can make some money, get going, and then change along the way, which happens a lot. And so if you're pretty nimble, that can work. If you have an end game, as she said, that maybe is more aligned, but I find that taking time up front to pinpointing exactly what the optimal idea, intention, goal, whatever you want to call it is, you save hours, days, years with failures that just don't happen. At least this has been my experience since I left the corporate world, that the more I'm aligned with my intuitive guidance, the more I tune into what am I really being guided to do and hear it, trust it, and act on it. So the more I can learn about that and get to that point of knowing that that's really me, that's optimal, I have saved literally years of effort with crawling up the wrong ladder, dealing with the wrong obstacles, overcoming the wrong mountains, whatever it is. Because when you're on the right path, you're going to have obstacles, but they're going to be the ones that you need to learn about to move to the next one on the right path. So it makes a huge difference when you start with the optimal intention, the optimal goal for you and your purpose. So, getting tuned into your purpose is probably stage one in any business or entrepreneur, because if you don't start with that, your compass is always off. So I guess Heather, if you have some other comments on that.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I really think that really helps to guide the way when you can lay a foundation that is intentional and is values based, and that there is that personal connectivity, I think, in entrepreneurship. And then, for a larger company where you've got a team, it's really engaging your overall team in, getting the buy-in from them as it relates to what the ultimate vision is, but, why it is that we're even doing this.
I want to add one more thought to that. You said something that struck a thought, Heather. Getting buy-in from the team is obviously very critical. So say like I'm a solopreneur right now, I have team people that I hire and work with, but it's my business, my team, my ideas. And so my intuition is driving it. And I have the final say. But when you are in a corporate environment, or you even have a team of 10 in your smaller business, perhaps, employing a conscious leadership model, I have found is, for me, I've defined that as what it takes to succeed in kind of any team environment. And so what I include in that conscious leadership model is empowering yourself and others to speak their truth, contribute their talents. I'm sure you have a lot of experience with that too, and knowing how to do that. And so I find that starting with that in leadership by intention, sort of with commitment and through energy, is a model that I've created and work with to take people to a successful outcome. But it does start with being empowered to speak your own truth. So you could have an idea, but if you're not willing to stand up for it or stick to your guns or, just really speak your truth constantly, you won't succeed. So that's something that I have learned over the years as well.
All right. So I'm going to kind of elaborate on that a little bit more. So in terms of, the top 3 things that seem to rise to the top as you're working with people, as perceptions that maybe keep them from moving forward to their success, might be not having clarity around their purpose or passion, or maybe they're entering this project without really feeling it or having that passion. And the purpose, and empowered to speak their truth. So what might be a couple of other things that someone may be experiencing that's keeping them from having their success, having the ability to move their project forward? And with that, I'll ask Heather.
When I think about that, there are a couple of things that come to mind. One being not understanding that there will always be problems at every level. I know I've been guilty of that myself, where I think, if I only, if I'm starting here, my goal is here. Once I get there, everything is going to be fine. Well, what I've learned is that there's a new problem once I get to that next level. So, we have this perception that, problems will go away, and not really recognizing that they are there and waiting and available to us at every single level of success that we achieve. The other thing is believing that you're not good enough. That's something that comes up, I would say, for probably many of us. I know it sure has for me, where I'm, we talk about this taking imperfect action, and I kind of go overboard with trying to make something quote unquote, perfect. And, if we're honest with ourselves, what is that? That's going to be something that we all define differently, the perfect product. So there's not necessarily any way to really achieve that. And then the third thing that comes to mind for me is either giving up or burning out. I think that, I've been in many situations over the years where, I may have decided, what, I'm throwing in the towel. In fact, one of my mantras for this year is quit quitting. Just as simple as that. Just quit quitting. Just kind of see it through, all the way through, to see what learning, can be acquired on the journey. The other thing that I mentioned there is that burning out. That's something that, sometimes that can show up in many different ways, taking on too much responsibility, overworking, there's many ways that might show up. But I just think those are some of the things that kind of keep us from moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I really like what you said about, there will always be problems. And so it's never going to be perfect. And if we're always striving to achieve perfection, once you achieve perfection, now you see something else that needs to be even more perfect. And so you just get in this vicious cycle, and it never launches. So I like that, because it's almost like when you're striving to achieve your dream. You achieve it, but now you've got your next dream, and it's this perpetual cycle, and you're never done. So Nancy, I'd like to hear kind of your perspective. Kind of what are a couple of things that you think, or that you see kind of rise to the top as a reoccurrence with people when you're helping them?
I look at it through an energetic footprint, and we each have one, and our energetic footprint defines how we sort of move through life. So whether it's work, relationships, or health. And so if we can recognize first that our beliefs and our thoughts and patterns aren't delivering what we want, we can choose to change them. And so I believe what's required to achieve the lifestyle is identified by, I look at it through this filter. The first thing is taking 100% responsibility for our actions all the time without fail. And when you do that, you do what's needed to change. You become self-aware, you get the help you need so that you can have the outcomes that you want. Throughout my corporate and coaching life, I found this to be probably the number one area of failure, when people don't take responsibility for themselves completely. Anytime you hear people talking about, well, so-and-so didn't do something, or they said this, I don't care. We have choice for, we get to decide what we want to be. And when you think about it, it covers a lot of ground when you take full responsibility, right? There's no blame, there's only you. And if you look at every situation in terms of what you learned, what worked, what needs to change, we know that we're alone responsible for making those decisions. And so the second thing that I come to is making those decisions or choices that support our intentions or our goals, and not yielding to distractions. So as I said before, we first need to make sure that our intentions are optimal for us, so that every choice we make along the way can be tied back to, does it support our intention or not? And Alan's heard me talk about this, but as the New Zealand team learned when they were working towards the America Cup in 95 and 2000, they had this question that they always asked. And if they couldn't answer yes, the answer was no. And that question was, does it make the boat go faster? If it doesn't, the boat is your intention. So that's why I'm so adamant about identifying what it is that you're moving towards, because every decision should be a simple one. If it supports that goal, great. If it doesn't support that goal, I don't care about political favors. You don't do it. So I guess I can be kind of black and white with that because I've had to work through it myself to cut out the distractions. And, if we find ourselves easily distracted, maybe we should say, what is it we really want? Is that intention really good for us? And is it big enough? Is it big enough to hold our complete commitment and attention to? So the third thing, and I'll wrap this up, if we have an energetic thought or pattern that doesn't really support our outcome, it is entirely possible to change it. And so people that are stuck in this mentality where they don't take personal responsibility and they say, well, I fear this, or I'm not good enough for that. Well, I don't really care, because guess what? You can change that. So lovingly, I help my clients through all of those energetic changes. I mean, I've been working on optimizing my own and my clients' footprints for over 15 years. I haven't found anything that can't be made better. If a person has the time to reach their goal, and that means their goal is worthy of reaching, then we can push away the stuck points. We can remove the beliefs that don't work. We can use neuroplasticity to change what doesn't work for us. I just want to, this is such a perfect timing. I got an email today from a client that has 6 reasons why it's not working for her so far. And at the end of it, she said, so could you give me your thoughts on this, Nancy? I opened it right before this started and I just cracked up and I thought, well, she should be on this thing. We should be talking together. But again, it's about not taking responsibility, right? Or not having the right intention and then getting distracted easily, or feeling so resistant that we aren't willing to change. So I know that all those things are possible if we want to. If we don't stick to what we think is right, what we have been told is right, or what some false hope we have that isn't really based on who we are. So I feel really strongly about that point, that we can change just about everything.
Yeah, no, I understand it. Yeah. And it starts with you, if you have to really look at your habits, I think distractions is a big one. If you're being pulled away and putting other things before your project, then it's not going to get done. So you have to remove those distractions, or at least learn how to manage them.
Yeah. And looking through new filters, right? Because when you're only looking through the same filter all the time, you only see it the same way all the time. That's why you hire coaches. That's why you hire experts in their field who maybe have proven themselves. You're going to get it through new eyes.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of talk about these barriers to your success kind of at a deeper level. And Nancy, you've been starting to allude to this, and I was hoping that both of you can kind of share a perspective on how the ethereal aspects of ourselves can have an impact on our ability to progress or to successfully move our business forward. I know there's a lot of, self-sabotaging, there's energy chakras, things like that people talk about and can work on as well. And I was hoping to have Heather, I'll have you start this, kind of talk a little bit about kind of how you can kind of bring this aspect of moving, energy and the ethereal side of things to moving your business forward and breaking through these barriers.
Yeah, sure. The way that I look at that, everything is energy. So our overall energetic self-perception that we have of ourselves, that can impact both our life and our work choices that we make. And with that, my work that I do with clients, there's an assessment that I have them do. It's called the Energy Leadership Index. And it's an attitudinal assessment. So it kind of lets you know where you stand as far as how you're currently feeling and how you're approaching things with, and what type of attitude, if you will, that you are going at a project or an initiative that you're working on. So it basically looks at your current perception of your approach to work and life. With the awareness that gets gained from an assessment like that, you then have the opportunity to kind of reshape the attitudes and the worldview that you might currently have and transform who it is that you are. So the fact that energy influences how we act, because it basically forms the lens through which we perceive the world. And there are different levels of energy that we might find ourselves in at any given moment. And I think a lot of that is guided by just emotional response to how it is that we look at the progress we might be making on a project or an initiative. We might look at that, as, poor me, I'm doing all this work by myself. I don't have anyone to support me in doing it because I haven't achieved that stage of business yet. So that's a bit of, what we might call a victim mentality. Or there might just be, frustration that you maybe feel experiencing around it, or just like, okay, it's fine. Even though I'm not getting the results, it's fine. When really it's not fine because you're not achieving your goals. And also just having compassion for yourself along the way. There are many, many different ways that we can take a look at it, but it's also tuning into what is your intuition is kind of telling you, what's really coming up. Are you checking in with yourself as it relates to moving things forward? All of that factors into whether or not you are going to achieve the outcome and whether or not you're going to stay in the game. We just talked a bit about, being committed, deciding and then determining how committed you are. And then are you really honoring those commitments? And if not, why not? So those are some things I think that would be ideal for kind of checking in to see, where am I?
Yeah, and I liked that you brought in your Energy Leadership Index. You had mentioned that once before when you were on here, and we'll make a note of that in on the landing page where we have the recording of this, where people can kind of check that out, because I thought that was very informative last time, and I could see how this works well with this and could help someone out, to kind of better understand how they're fitting in with the situation. And I think it's kind of interesting how your environment as well as your experiences, kind of your your connection with that or your energy around that really can impact an outcome. And so I think that's pretty interesting that you kind of made that point.
Yeah.
Nancy, I'd like to hear kind of your perspective on this a little bit.
I mentioned that I look at a lens of what is the energy footprint of that person? What beliefs do they bring in ancestrally? What other multidimensional lifetime influences are bearing upon the situation? And once I start working with somebody, I can tune in pretty quickly with what those patterns are, what is driving the behavior, from a very human model standpoint. Beliefs drive thoughts, drive patterns, drive results. So when you can get to the bottom of what's causing the thought and the pattern, as we all know, then you have some opportunity to create different outcomes. And so I use quite a few different modalities to work with the neuroplasticity in our brain to change how we think. And energetically, there's just a ton of different tools that you can use to change that, to address, course correct the thinking, I guess, to create a new mind pattern. And neurofeedback's a really big one that has been out there a long time. I was listening to a call with Dave Asprey last month. He spoke to my mastermind group, and it was amazing. He said he spent 4 months in neuroplasticity and pretty much released all of his fear around a particular topic. And so when you can hone in on what are those limiting issues, beliefs, fears, because it all comes down to some kind of a fear we have around something, then you can create a more bold, forward-loving, confident action to create a different result. So I have a whole bunch of, that was really professional. I have several different modalities that I use to help people change their energetic footprint and eliminate the things that aren't serving them and bring in the energy that is serving them. So once you can pinpoint that, that's really helpful. And, maybe you don't have access to that today, or you don't want to invest in yourself for that. But I can tell you this, if you can start to evaluate your own patterns, that's a good place to start. Well, first off, what are the results you're getting that you aren't so, in love with? And then back into what are the patterns that you typically follow? And every pattern is preceded by a belief. So those are some things that you can even start with to identify, how do I start changing my outcome? Well, I don't like this, and these are the patterns I have, and this is the belief I have. And so there are some ways that you can do it quite naturally. And so I guess my point is there's just a million different approaches you can use to reset your thinking, your energy footprint, and create really, really different results. And I wanted to share this thing, which I thought was really cool. I learned recently that Mike Tyson was getting ready to go back into the ring. And he did 3 things to help him be prepared. He'd been out for quite some time. The first thing he did was some stem cell work, which is pretty prevalent now and can correct just about any physical challenge you have. The second thing he did was a nutritional dive. He got totally on board with what was going to serve him nutritionally. And the third thing he did was energy work. And that's the first time I've heard, such a common or such a profound shift from somebody, because this guy is not like 20 years old and in, the new generation. He's been around a little bit. So I was really excited to hear that from, different camps in the world, that this is becoming much more common. And of course, I've been involved for over 15 years with this work, and I can tell you it is life-changing and it's transforming. And one last thought on that. If you can learn to tap into your intuition and increase your consciousness, which goes hand in hand, you have access to just-in-time solutions, because your intuition is always right, is always perfect timing. It's just that most of us don't access it or trust it or act on it. So that is really one way that you can, without making a whole lot of other changes, get better output.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I see that someone had put in the chat, 2020 has created a lot of barriers, such as distractions, loneliness, negative self-talk, and lack of purpose. And kind of what you're talking about here is if someone were to just take some time to slow down, be quiet a little bit, and maybe see if they can settle the thoughts and just hone in on what's really going on here, and what's really going on in their mind, and start dissecting it and breaking it apart. And I think it was Byron Katie has a great series of questions to get at the truth, and being able to assess the situation or the thoughts that you have. Is this true? And you kind of go down and dig deep, and that way you can overcome loneliness or negative self-talk, or even, a lack of purpose, just getting someone out of that state of, because when you're down, that's all you see. So the idea is to kind of get you out so you can open up and start seeing things that are really there, because everything you need is right there underneath your nose, just not always able to see it.
Well, I like what you just said, Alan, about being down and the person who's asking the question about being lonely. We all have friends, we all have peers, and sometimes asking for help really gets you in a different framework and helps you to see the situation differently. So it's the awareness that's always the first step.
Yeah, I think one of the key things you said there is ask for help. And I know I'm guilty of this, where I just get so wrapped up into a situation or the emotion around something or whatever it is, and I can really bring myself down pretty quick and get stuck or stay there. Or even not even to that level, but I just churn on a project and I can't seem to break through to advance it. Asking for help from, it could be a friend, it could be your pretend friend from when you were a kid. Just asking, that whole action of asking for help really does change the energy around it, and it starts breaking things loose. And if you settle down and are more observant, you'll start seeing things that you haven't seen before. And so, that's kind of one of those things for, imperfect action. Just ask for help. That's vulnerability. So I guess that's imperfect action as well. If we're to kind of talk a little bit about what that might look like. Okay, what I'd like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Heather.
No, I was just going to add to what you were saying. The asking for help, that is also. But it takes breaking through, being vulnerable enough to ask for the help, or even positioning yourself to be able to, find the person or the people or the community that, where you have that comfort level to be able to raise your hand and say, hey, I can use some support. On the other side of that is that we must help ourselves. We really must. And we talked a bit about self-awareness. So I just say to make sure that you have developed some sort of a self-awareness practice for yourself, whether that is, taking some time to examine the thoughts that you have that might be that negative self-talk, or even when distractibility does come up, and, really, looking at, okay, what is it that I'm feeling? What emotions am I kind of indulging in right now? Whether it be overwhelm or doubt or confusion, all of which are things that kind of knock us off that pathway to success. Really just kind of examining those and then asking ourselves the questions, what is in my control? What's maybe one decision that I could make right now? Or what is one action that I could take right now to kind of just move myself into that next space? But at the end of the day, I think we all need to ask ourselves, are we willing to make peace with the discomfort that comes with the things that we really, really want?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because sometimes things always look greener on the other side of the fence. Yeah. And then when you get there, it's like, wait a minute. Well, that's good.
Heather, I wanted to say, I think that last point you made is so profound. In fact, I was having a conversation with a client this morning on that discomfort piece. She's going through a major transition. And so we laid out a plan for what do you do when you experience discomfort? What are some small steps you can take to move into comfort in a discomforting environment. And so she had a really horrible situation she came from. And so, to your point, mapping out what are those steps we can take to move ourselves forward, even if it's not comfortable. And it goes back to that personal responsibility. If you're committed to that goal, you're going to find a way. And, either self-evaluation or asking for other people, looking through a different lens. It's a commitment thing. It's a commitment thing to your success, to your vision of what you want. And I don't say that lightly. I don't mean to be flippant about that at all. I mean, those of us who've been around a while, you've worked through a lot of stuff, right, to get to that point. And so, but it's worth it. It's worth really going within to find some answers and then ask for help of yourself or others.
Sure. Yeah, no, I like that. Both of you had some really good points there, but I'm going to throw a little curveball at you. So what if we break through all these barriers and we get out there and we launch our program or product and it's a total bomb? So what do we do when that happens? So Heather, I'd like to hear your perspective on that.
Well, I say this whole understanding of failure is really important at the get-go, like before you even take a step forward, because most people don't achieve their goals because they're afraid to fail. I mean, that's the truth of it. And learning how to quote unquote properly fail, I think, is really the key to success, because we get to success by being willing to fail. They're so integrated. There's no one without the other in terms of how I look at it. In fact, there's a quote that if you want success, you need to double your rate of failure. And I don't know who that quote is by, but I that's something that I have kind of referred to myself every now and then. I take a look at that because this is how we reach our goals. But the key to knowing that we can decide what failure is, knowing that we can decide what failure means to us. That's the key right there. And we cause our own negative emotions around failure. And sometimes it's hard to believe that, if you've had, and I myself, I've had many big, hard failures in life, both personally and professionally. But, in recognizing that I am the cause of whatever negative emotions I attach to that failure, that's huge right there. I mean, that really kind of helps determine where it is that you go from there. So a lot of people sometimes will stop even expecting success, so that they never have to fail. The fear can be that gripping sometimes, as you approach, a business venture or a project or an initiative within the business. So, and I think the reason for that is that if we happen to miss the expectation of the result that we want to achieve, not realizing that we get to decide what we want that to mean. It's like we're so defeated sometimes when it comes to that, and not understanding that we can decide what we want it to mean. But the final thing that I'll add to that is that through failure is really where we find our confidence. Sometimes we feel like, wait, I got to get confident in this first before I'll actually take the action and move it forward. Not really understanding that in order to, that we have to do the thing first, and then we find our confidence, after we've done it and we've gotten some practice and we kind of fail ourselves forward, if you will. So I would say to really keep your eyes out for other ways that failure might show up for you in terms of you just not showing up for something. So you kind of sabotage your own effort in advance before you even move it forward, or even engaging in, I spoke a little earlier about the indulgent emotion of confusion. When we say, I don't know, I'm just not decided. Those are all ways that we could try to avoid failing, if you will, and not move ourselves forward. So a question, I guess, that you can ask is, where is it that you see a lack of success in your business because of your unwillingness to fail? So
yeah, I like that.
Yeah, take a look.
Yeah, and the thing I found out too is when you do fail pretty big on something, it makes it easier to get the next thing done because you've already bombed pretty bad. So you can't fail much worse. So it makes it easier to do the next one. So anyway, Nancy, I'd like to hear your perspective around that.
So you brought up a couple things I wanted to address along with some other things. Heather talked about what does failure mean to you. I want to look on the flip side and what does success mean to you? It depends on how you look at what success is. And I tend to say that if you're a healthy entrepreneur, you're not concerned so much about what other people call a success or failure, right? It's about what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to create in life. What kind of a consciousness level are you trying to get to, and who do you want to take with you? So those things are answered from within. I want people to validate themselves, not be validated by someone else. So success to me is how you're validating yourself, and are you reaching your goals? No. Okay. So let's course correct and look what that pattern is back towards the belief. Why do I have that fear of failure? And if I do, then I suggest we go get some energetic shifting, because I refuse to accept that I have a fear of failure and therefore I'm never going to succeed. I don't accept that. I don't accept it in myself, and I don't accept it in others, because that can be changed. That can be fixed. So I feel pretty strongly that there's really nothing that can't be adjusted in your energetic footprint to help you move forward. The other thing that I liked what you commented on, Heather, and I want to add to that, is you do get your self-confidence from acting, failing forward. And one of the things I learned a while ago was that self-confidence is not having all the answers, but it's having the confidence that you can figure it out. And so that goes back again to, maybe you don't figure it out the first time, but who's judging you? I am judging me, and only I allow me to judge me. And if I don't meet my own expectations, then I got to figure out how to shift it. It's not what my husband thinks or what, somebody else is thinking. So the self-confidence that I like to see people develop is just this idea that I can figure this out. If I work at it long enough, or if I get help, or if I use a different framework or look through a different lens, I'm going to figure this out. And so to me, that is the self-confidence that we need to burn through any problem. So kind of wanted to comment on those things.
Yeah, no, I like that. Okay, so we're kind of nearing the end. So what I'm going to do is ask you guys if you could leave people with 2 or 3 key takeaways to begin taking action to make change immediately in their life and to start breaking through these barriers. What might that be? And with that, I'll start with Heather.
I would say decide. You have to make the decision by getting clear on what your purpose is and what it is that you're committing to. The other thing that comes up for me is development, just really working on your own personal development. What are your self-care practices? Before we even take ourselves into work for our work day or to work on our business, what are we doing to take care of ourselves from a self-care, what is that practice we may have in place for that to kind of increase more and more self-awareness of how we're showing up. And then lastly, I would say do it. Whatever it is for you, whatever project you may be working on, if you somehow came to the call today thinking, this imperfect action thing, I just can't get beyond it. I've got to get, my project to, a perfect 100% before I'll move it forward. Do it and plan to fail for sure along the way, and just take in the learning that may come from what you may consider to be a failure, and just keep in mind that you get to decide what failure means to you.
Yeah, I like those 3 points. I think they're really good. I guess that's kind of what brought Nike along, right? Just do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, exactly. I do like that. Nancy, I'd like to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Well, what's most important to me in life is my freedom, sovereignty, freedom, having choice, being able to run my life the way I want to run it, and bring to fruition things I want to bring to fruition. And so what I have found is I've had to search for ways to compensate for answers I didn't have and figure it out. And so I wanted to leave you with two things that you can do anywhere, anyhow, that will help you. So I mentioned I developed a leadership model that I call the conscious leadership model, and so part of that is starting with with intention, accurate intention, and the commitment, and then the working through energy. Each of those brings some values, and I'm not going to go into the teaching aspect, but I do want to say this: when we commit to something, we automatically get help. Staying committed and focused on what we want doesn't mean it's going to be problem-free, but two things show up for help. Human help. When people see you're committed to a huge goal, big intention, or a huge declaration, they want to be part of that. Just look around at people that you know are working on big things. People come out of the woodwork to help you. It happened to me a couple times with the conference I just put on, and I won't go through all the detail, but I've experienced it, I've witnessed it, and it's true. So from a human side, people come in, they want to be with winners, right? And when they see you have conviction that you're going to figure this out, they want to be with you. So already you have another filter, already you have more expertise. And so you can start that collaboration. So that's the human side of help. The other side of help is when you commit, you have energetic help that you probably aren't aware of. But you've heard that statement that when you commit, Providence steps in. That's just one way that you get help energetically. And so we know that when we're really committed, our guides are going to help us in many, many different ways. So the commitment is a really big deal, and you want to commit to the right intention. So that whole idea of commitment and the help that brings carries you a long way to succeeding and figuring it out. The other thing I wanted to say is a little exercise that I've shared with Alan and many people. It's still my favorite one because it's so simple. And so draw a T on a piece of paper. On the left side, you write your name on the top. And on the right side, you write whoever you look to for guidance. And so on that left side, you're going to write down what you can personally do, you can make happen, or delegate if you're in an organization. So you know that you're physically capable of doing that. And on the right side, you write down those things you need help with. What mountain do you want moved? What act of Congress do you want passed? You know what I mean? So you just start to identify those things that you don't have control over, and then you let it go. And you will be shocked at the energetic help that you get, the solutions that come forward, the things that fall in your lap. And once again, you're going to be able to figure it out. So I like to give people things that really help them every day, simple things they can do. And if I could just offer one more little idea, it'll take me 30 seconds, So how many of you have read Napoleon Hill's Mastermind? His Think and Grow Rich? How many times have you read it is probably the question. In one chapter on Mastermind, he actually created his own mastermind with people that were dead and alive. And he intuitively communicated with them and got all of his best ideas. So those are things you can do right at home to get yourself out of a fix.
All right. Well, those are very great things that we can explore. And I think rattle off a couple of books. I like the T. What things can I do? What things are out of my control? I really like that. And I like Heather's Just Do It, along with self-care. The development, how do you keep yourself energetically there and healthy to make it happen? Because you're kind of the key to the success of what you're trying to do. So I really appreciate that. And I want to thank you both very much for being here today. I really appreciate your insight and your wisdom. And I'd like to thank all of our attendees for being here today. And to show our appreciation and gratitude for our guest panelists today, we are making a donation to Claire Housing. It's an organization based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And Claire Housing provides affordable and supportive housing options and creates healing communities that optimize the health of people living with HIV and AIDS. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more about them and maybe helping them out as well, it's clairehousing.org, CLARE housing.org. And with that, we worked in a couple of the questions that people had that they noted in the chat. But if you think of a question after the fact here and you would like to get an answer, send it to us at info@consciousbranding.com and we will respond to you. We'll be sending everyone who registered a follow-up link to the recording of this episode, along with some bonus materials. So feel free to share this information with your friends and peers and whoever you think might be interested. Our next Thrivecast episode will be in our new format. The episodes will be pre-recorded we'll be focusing on our time with one guest speaker, and we'll be going a little bit deeper on the subject. So keep an eye out for the announcements for the next episode. I'm hoping that we'll have that out here in March, and we may be able to get things out more rapidly, so more rather than fewer, and they should be higher quality. So looking forward to that, and forward to sharing these amazing explorations. And one thing I want to leave you with, remember, you create your world, so believe in your vision, drive it with purpose, and above all, take action. So until next time, be remarkable and have a great day.